But what that did for me, getting these hearing aids, is it increased my self-esteem, my self-confidence. I didn't have to listen as hard. I had the ability to read lips already, which I wasn't really super cognitive of, but I now know that that's what I did to get through.
Welcome to Attitude of Altitude podcast, presented by Planet of One. We're sharing stories and conversations, encouraging and empowering listeners to be bold, take action, and be your best self, so we may be the change we desire to see in this world. Know that your attitude determines your altitude in life. Welcome to the podcast. Hello and welcome, you guys. Would you like to have a superpower skill? Our guest today does. She can read lips extremely well. And I'll let her tell you how she got that, but let me formally introduce her. First of all, Teresa Barnes is a former emergency department manager, RN, registered nurse, who is the founder and CEO of Hear Communications, a business educational company that helps connect, educate, and empower those with hearing loss while increasing awareness around this often ignored social and health issue. Her um, deaf sign name is TJ, and I will let her tell us a lot more about her so you can understand all of this. Teresa, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. And this is your welcome. So thank you for having me on your podcast, Attitude of Altitude podcast. And I was told maybe 10 years ago or more by someone in the local community in Carlsbad that it was a gift that I was given hearing loss. And now I have superpowers. That's even better. So, so my name is Teresa June. So I went by TJ for a long time. This is the deaf sign language for T. This is the sign language for J. So what happened to me is I was born with hearing loss. We don't know if it was a 21 gun salute or if it was malnutrition because my father was in the Navy and money was tight, or if by chance it was due to the fact that my own aunt is deaf. And so it might be genetic. So those are the three major reasons. Loud noise is the number one. There are also ototoxic medications, which there are 200 of them at least. Well, that's one of the things is we with hearing loss cannot phonically spell something or even look at it and know how to phonically say it. So that's something that most people don't know because I've had people phonically spell things for me and I just look at them. And of course, I'm not the same little girl that I was or female growing up with hearing loss, but now I have enough confidence where I can say, how do you say your name? And do you have a clue where I can remember your name? Like in my case, I tell people I am a mother of 2 grown children. So I say I'm Mother Teresa. That's how Teresa. And Barnes is for the bookstore, like Barnes and Noble. And that's an easy. So how can I remember your name?
Oh, that's a good question to say to someone.
Well, you think about that one for a little while. If I misenunciate it later, but I do appreciate the correction. So basically what happened to me is I didn't know growing up that I had a hearing loss until my father got stationed in Morocco, Africa. And in Morocco, Africa, what happened to me one day is I was playing down at the end of the street from our house. And at that time we were living on the base because my dad was in the Navy. And my father called me, as most parents do. They want the kids to come home. It's time to eat dinner now. And apparently I didn't hear him. And so what he did was he came storming up the sidewalk and he slammed me against the head and my face landed on the car and I did cut my lip. And he said, you will listen to me and you will hear me when I call you and when I tell you to come home. And I never, I don't know if it was Mrs. Green, my 3rd grade teacher, that helped me out, but I know for a fact that because I was a little teeny skinny kid growing up in Morocco, first, second, and third grade, 57, 58, 59. So that's how old I am. And we didn't really know that much about hearing or hearing loss even at that time. But even at that time, it really had a huge stigma. People were wearing hearing boxes, okay? And I've met people that their parents chose to get them hearing aids and hearing boxes, and they got put in special needs classes, so they were treated differently than I was. But my father, my third, I did stutter, and I did have a problem with public speaking when I was a child. And so my Black second grade teacher, Mrs. Green, which now that I know much more, I realize she was probably lonely there in Morocco too, since she was Black and most of the teachers were Caucasian or white. And so she every day after swimming class, she would take me, she said, stop by my house anytime. So I would have milk and cookies. And one time I was trying to give a book report in front of the class and I stuttered, it seemed like for eternity. And Mrs. Green said, just remember the milk and cookies. And that did some switch in my brain where I was able to stop stuttering and give my talk that I needed to give. And so people don't often realize that it's how you perceive any sort of gift like hearing loss that's been given to you or special skills, And so what happened is in the third grade, a teacher ended up recommending that I have my hearing tested. We didn't have hearing boosts at that time. And so it was very late at night. I'm only 8 or 9 years old. I don't remember when exactly it was done, but I ended up walking down a smelly hospital hall, and my parents went with me, and then the doctor popped me up on the stretcher, and some strange man put a headset on my head and told me when I heard a sound in my right ear, pushed a button, and when I heard one in the left ear. And we did that, and I wanted to please this man, so I did the best I could. And then walking down that same horrible hallway, the doctor, I think I heard him say, her ear canals are going to close up and she's going to lose all of her teeth. I still have them all these years. And we didn't know. But what happened to that? And thank you to Mrs. Mari Perez, who I did get to meet, and I get goosebumps every time I tell the story. I did get to meet her when I was 50 years old, or a little bit over 50, somewhere around that ballpark, because I did the Blue Men's Cry, and it's a very high pitched, it goes real, I don't want to blow out your ears, but I did that at a birthday party. And she said, TJ, where'd you learn the Blue Men's Cry? And I said, oh, Morocco, Africa. She said, well, when were you there? I said, 58, 57, 58, and 59. She said, I was there when 59. For some reason, people think, those of you listening can't see, but most people think I'm a partier. And I think I'm the cheerleader person, all that. But the truth is I love to play, and that's how I made friends back then. Just like Lou Ferragno, the Hulk, he got hearing loss when he was 2 or 3 years old, so he went into athletics. I also did that, which I'll share with you just a little bit. But my mom only had a 9th grade education, and my mom gave me daily diction lessons. So that's why my speech is as good as it is, okay? So Mr. Ferragno and also Rob Lowe both lost. Rob Lowe has what's called mono hearing, which means he only hears in one ear. He doesn't really acknowledge his hearing loss at all, other than he says that restaurants, loud restaurants, make him ballistic. And that's an exact quote. but it's not really accessible for those of us that wear hearing aids because it's too loud for us with noise discrimination to be able to even hear the person sitting across from us, so with Lou Ferragno, he was the hero for the deaf culture because he decided to go that route. And so he bodybuilded. And then he became the Hulk on the TV shows and in the comics and everything. And so what transpired is he is married to a woman that has normal hearing, and normal hearing is normal hearing starts at 0, to 25 decibels, 24, 25 decibels. And you can use it in percentages if you want to, if that's easier for your brain to comprehend. So what transpired was he used that, and then several years ago, he decided to get what's called a STEAM hearing aids, which go all the way down in his ear. And then now he's more of a person who likes to help. He likes to help the deaf community as well, but he's also supporting people that wear hearing aids because according to Dr. Frank Lynn, 20% of us in the United States, so if you take that extrapolation, that's 65 million Americans who are just like me, who have some sort of a hearing loss. So I didn't get my first set of hearing aids until I was 22 years old.
Wait. You didn't get hearing aids till you're 22, but didn't you say as a child you actually got tested?
I got tested, but my dad did not believe that there was anything wrong with his princess. And I don't know, there was a stigma about hearing loss then, and there's a stigma about wearing hearing aids now, and even hearing loss now. And so for the 21st century, this is what we're going to do. Because back in the Olmec culture, 2500 BC, so 2500 BC, people used to wear this logo, just like I have this on. They would wear this. And they also had it outside of their homes. They had it outside of their businesses. So that, because people with hearing loss were considered special, because we do communicate a special way. We lip read for one thing, and the deaf culture, there is a smaller percentage of people who actually use American Sign Language, even in the deaf culture. So it just is what it is, So at 22 years old, as a registered nurse, and in those days we called us head nurses rather than nursing managers, I was working, I had trained at that hospital, Medical College of Virginia, which is now V as in victory, C as in cat, U as in umbrella. So those are words that are consonants that are hard to understand. So that's why I'm saying that. At VCU, and another nurse said, I think you need to get your hearing checked. And so I thought, well, okay, my 10th grade teacher a public school teacher had come to my parents' home. I won't repeat on broadband all the profanity that my father used towards a teacher, but whoever she is, if she's still around, and if you remember me, Teresa Barnes, then thank you too for at least trying to help, and because I do remember that incident, so I stored it in my brain, down to a place called Fort Lee, which is an Army base. But I had a medic or a corpsman or whatever their title is, do the hearing test again. And according to his test, I was deaf. So no hearing at all, DEAF. And I thought, I'm going to go get those hearing aids anyway. I'm just going to see how this is. So I went and got them. And I heard bird chirping for the first time. So how you see those videos where babies heard for the first time? Well, that's the way it was. I never heard crickets. I never heard frogs. I never heard that. And one night in the intensive care unit, when this nurse and I got everybody settled, I said, okay, you're the one that got me these hearing aids. I hear a sound, and we're on the 13th floor. So I don't think it's a snake. But so we went around and checked the room because I had never heard that sound before. It was a high-pitched sound. I'd never heard the sound before. And so it was a old-fashioned radiator. That sound. But what that did for me, getting these hearing aids, is it increased my self-esteem, my self-confidence. I didn't have to listen as hard. I had the ability to read lips already, which I wasn't really super cognitive of, but I now know that that's what I did to get through. People have said, well, how did you do so well in school? I said, well, now we know I must have lip read. So that's the reason why if you have a child that even has mild hearing loss in a school situation, whether it be a university or an elementary school or middle school or high school, you want to sit them up front. And one of the easy ways to find us out, you can talk behind our back. You can drop a spoon behind a baby's back. And if it's not, it's crawling around on the floor because it's at that stage. And if it doesn't startle, you need to follow through, because sometimes the newborn screening tests are not done. And I did meet the woman that created the newborn screening test, Marion Down. She's a Rosie Riveter, and I did stay at her home. And she does support this concept of us wearing something on ourselves to help us, for other people to recognize that we have hearing loss. And she says, so they won't have to yell at us or exaggerate their speech, because we can't understand what you're saying when you're yelling because your mouth is malformed. And we can't understand what you're saying if you're exaggerating your lips because it's malformed. None of us learned that way. And almost everyone has learned how to read, how to talk by reading their parents' lips. You have people like Helen Keller and even Habian, who is both deaf and blind, where they have used tactile touch to figure out where the lip is moving. So that's what they do. But I've never been to that level, but they do say now that we need to have closed captioning, because a lot of people can't afford hearing aids, even over-the-counter hearing aids. And for just a minute, we do have, I talked about Lou Ferragno the Hawk. We had a 4-year-old boy, I've forgotten his name right now, but a little 4-year-old boy, where he really admired heroes. And he admired heroes, And he said, how can I wear hearing aids? Because heroes don't wear hearing aids, So Marvel Comic actually created the blue ear. So if you have somebody that's out there that's a young adult or even a little child, and people who have hearing loss, they don't like to be called impaired. In the medical world, we say that you have a hearing impairment or you're hearing impaired. And all that means is the ear organ is broken. That's all. It has nothing to do with the cognitive ability of the individual, So it's something that for me, I decided to take my 2 children and several of their little friends up to Mammoth Mountain to go skiing on a winter ski break. I was the only adult driving, and the only adult. And so I didn't ski where I normally ski. It was the last day, last run, beautiful runs. Nobody was there. The snow was sparkling on the mountains, The kids were in ski school, so it was just time for mom to come pick them up. And out of the middle of nowhere, I didn't see anybody, and we with hearing loss that know what we're doing, we look in front of us, we look to the right, we look to the left, and we look behind. Every time I cross the street, I do all 4 of those actions. And even when I'm driving, it's something that if a person loses hearing when we'll just use the age 18, which is when people can sign up for the military, so we'll use that as the adult level. When they, 60% of the Afghan and Iraqi veterans now came back with hearing loss, and they're classified as late deafened adults. So for them, their speech will be really clear. But if you say something, could you describe to me the necklace that she's wearing? And if they say one word and they don't describe it, then I'm like, okay, let me ask another question. So you ask open-ended questions is my point. So you do that. So on that ski trip, the man crashed into me from behind. I rolled, I tumbled. For those of you who didn't see my face, it was totally disgusting. But when I came to, I think, because I don't know if I passed out or not, because you don't know, but I did my emergency room check to figure out that, no lungs were punctured, nothing was broken. I wasn't paraplegic or quadriplegic because I wiggled my toes, And then I decided to get up. So I got up, I got my skis back on. I looked around to see who or what hit me or where the person was to help me. And I see some man up the hill smirking at me. And I thought to myself, wow, that is something that you just don't do to me. so, so I have a little Irish in me. So I looked back at him and I pointed my finger. I said, "Did you see me?" And he belligerently yelled back at me. I yelled a warning shout to the right. A couple weeks later, I'm down at Mission Bay Park bicycling and mother bear mode against my daughter because she has sight problems and for some reason would always get hit. And sight, hearing, and speech are the three communication disorders, just so you know. So there's 1.1 blind, there's 65 million of us with hearing loss, and there's 7.5 that have speech disorders, and many people with hearing loss have the speech also. So
Teresa, what was it like for you as a child going through hearing loss? Because so parents can understand what their kids are going through.
Well, for me, I felt bullied. I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed that I answered the wrong way. I felt excluded, If you as a parent want to know what it's like, all you have to do is flashback. We're in the year 2022, flashback to 2020, when everybody started wearing masks. So the number one thing is we are isolated, and I felt really misunderstood. And even to this day, 4 years ago, or 5, whatever the number is now, I was called a moron. And we know since I'm an author of a book and all the other things that I've done, I'm not a moron, and that's not a politically correct thing to do. So it's the kind of thing that October is Hearing Awareness Month. I would suggest that these parents that you're talking about, and I suggest for everyone really, to go online. And you can do free online hearing tests. You can have fun with it. Nobody needs to see but your family. So therefore, we have, God worked it out this way, where women lose low pitch sounds first, so we don't hear men as often, as quickly. And men lose high pitched women voices and children. So your daddy is not ignoring you if he's got hearing loss. But for some reason I had somebody tell me the other day, it is not a sign of being old wearing hearing aids, because you heard the stats on the young veterans. But it's smarter to wear hearing aids if you need them, And so the kids that have cochlear implants and the kids who have who are deaf, they are put in special needs classes usually. And if they're not put in special needs classes, you also can do what's called closed captioning. There's 3 apps that I like: the Live Transcribe, which Zoom uses, the Otter, OTTER, which is a military grade protected. And then there's AVA or AVA. So I would suggest that you do I like the hearing test MD, like medical doctor, free online hearing test. And I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I did an audiology exam, and I did that through Costco. And in my opinion, October is Cancer Awareness Month, and we do mammograms for women, and we do proctoscopes for the other cancer. And so why not have October is Hearing Awareness Month. Why not knock on your local audiologist's door and say, "Hey, I heard Teresa Barnes, and I would like to see if you would do me a free hearing test." And then you can compare the two if you want to, but have fun with it. And there are things that you can wear in your ears. I go to a local place called Cafe Coyote, And I went in there one day and there was a young family and they had a thing called what's PURO, Puros, I guess, but a headset that goes over your ears where they had on their little 4-year-old daughter or 5-year-old daughter because loud noise can blow it out. And if you're in an environment that's over 85 decibel, even though occupational safety and health says it's 90 decibel, the World Health Organization that everybody knows about now says that it's if you listen to sound for 85 decibels for more than 8 hours, you will get hearing loss.
Teresa, how does the ear work from all your knowledge?
Oh, okay. It's very simple. Sound travels in at 725 miles per hour. It goes through what's called the outer ear, which is the pinea. The outer ear consists of the pinea and the eardrum. If you start getting too much earwax, that means maybe you're listening to sound too loud, or if you're around a lot of bacteria, then maybe you need to change that environment because the earwax is producing to protect the ear from the really loud noise as much as it can. Same way if you go swimming, same principle, you know. So then it taps on the eardrum, and then it taps on the hammer, the anvil, the stirrup, and at that point it's a mechanical energy. So that's what it is. And then when it goes into the cochlear, which is the size of a pea, it has designed to have, some people say 15,000, some people say 22,000, but somewhere around there. Little cochlear hair cells that float around in indolent fluid, kind of like seaweed, but they don't grow back, but they're hair follicles, you know. And when its sound comes through, it pops up, it captures its sound, it converts it from mechanical energy into electrical energy. And if the auditory nerve is working, it sends it to the brain, and the brain transforms it from sound into language, whatever language you speak. And it transformed that into 0.05 seconds. So 0.05 seconds.
Wow, that's incredible how quickly it does that. So
Yeah.
what is it about the loud sound? You were mentioning the decibel part. What is it about it that actually injures your ear or produces hearing loss? What is that?
Okay. Well, right now we have the hurricane Ian or Ian, whichever way you want to pronounce it, down there in Florida. So, you know, the ocean is crashing against the buildings and it's knocking them over. We're going to rebuild the buildings, right? In all probability. Well, sound comes crashing in and it knocks out those poor little hair cells that are floating around in there trying to capture its sound. And once they're blown out, they don't grow back.
Mm.
Okay, so they've been working for almost 20 years in a place back east near Harvard University for stem cell research. That hasn't come to be yet. So all there is remediation now. And so remediation is where you wear hearing aids.
Mm-hmm.
And Mrs. Whoopi Goldberg on The View said hearing aids are a BI and then CH, you know, what's in between. Because she got her hearing blown out by listening to loud music, just like Peter Townsend did. He does have a project called The Rockers and the Who up in San Francisco for musicians. But a person that's been on my board ever since I had the International Association for the Hearing Challenge, which I did help the youngest baby, 5 months old, get bilateral cochlear implants. And Oliver now is 14. Oliver can't go into restaurants because they don't have hearing-friendly spaces. And his teenage friends, he does have a group of friends, but the majority stay clear of him because they don't understand what he's got. And there's no reason. It's 2021, you know.
Would you elaborate on the hearing-friendly spaces and what that means for individuals that don't even understand what that means to them?
Okay. Well, you know how we have wheelchair ramps and we have bathrooms for people in wheelchairs. Mm-hmm. So take a restaurant, you just would take a corner of a restaurant and you simply would want to have walls, you know, you could even have noise dampening, colorful designs or plain that's even available from Home Depot on the walls. And then you would have employees that have been trained to recognize people with hearing loss. And you simply would have that area would be where the decibel levels would be kept. I like the decibel level 72, but at least below 84 decibels, so that we don't cause any hearing loss to the babies in utero. Okay, so babies in utero can get hearing loss due to babies start hearing at 16 weeks. So if you've got the young server, say at Starbucks, they're listening to the sound all the time, machines, for the coffee things, And so the little baby is down there hearing all the sound. And so if for some reason their organs are a little less strong, then they can become deaf. And 90% of the deaf babies have hearing parents, So a hearing friendly space would have that. And then all people are welcomed in that. So people with autism need it where it's quieter. People with post-traumatic stress syndrome need it where it's quiet. Anxiety disorder needs where it's quieter. And then there are the 80% who have good hearing that want to conserve their hearing, hopefully, And eventually it'll kind of be like the restaurant industry when we did the no smoking restaurants, smoking area, no smoking area. And Daniel Fink, who you heard me mention earlier, he said, noise is a new secondhand smoke,
Mm-hmm.
So that area would be where you also would not do what's called lumbar speaking. And that's just where if I talk loud, then you need to talk louder. And then the next person needs to talk louder. And the next thing you know, we're all yelling, competing against one another. And even the people who can hear well, I've been with them. I say, can you hear what's going on? And they go, no, Teresa, I'm just like you, and I don't have the advantage of being able to read their lips. So I do take off my glasses when I go into restaurants because my glasses are for distance. And I also have been hired to help people with their wills when people have lost their voice, like if they've had a stroke or something like that. And I've also been hired in different business meetings where they don't really know what I'm doing. And now with it being football season, why the coaches have their piece of paper over their lips is so that we can't lip read, So that's Jeffrey A. Smith is an MD, ENT. He's also the one that brought this Olmec piece back from down in the Mayan area. But he got hearing loss when he was in high school due to playing a loud band, where he didn't wear something like musician high fidelity earplugs. This is one brand that I like called Eargasmics, and you can have them specially made if you're really trying to protect your hearing. But he has gone all the way through college, high school, finishing high school, college, and medical school. And then he is the doctor that created the swimmer's ear because he was a surfer. And so he damaged his hearing a little bit more. But he wears bilateral hearing aids. And he's worn them all the way through. And so just like Marley Matlin said, the deaf can do anything the hearing can do but hear. And in this case, those with hard of hearing loss issues can do anything that normal hearing can do. But it depends on where you're at, on whether it would just be easier if we had businesses become hearing friendly trained and certified so that they can help those who maybe don't have the same confidence level or knowledge base that both Dr. Smith and I have. Or even in a restaurant, you can get these little has hearing loss right here. I went to Maui in December, and I had the coat that I wore had a lapel. So I didn't even have this because people want to know what this means. So this says it clearly, has hearing loss. So this is my passport. So I simply point at this, and you'd be amazed at how much people want to help you, The kids go to see the football games or the basketball games or the prep rallies inside the gym that their parents encourage them to wear something like this. And you can even give rewards, money always, little rewards always work for kids to try to get them to do something. And I would like to see the kids in the classrooms and even in work environment have what I called hearing heroes. And I was on a podcast the other day where the man said, what he said was guides, Guides. And we had a good laugh over it because on his Facebook group, I said, well, are women excluded on this group? Or are you going to include women on this? And I said, or is it only just guys? And he laughed. He said, Teresa, I didn't say Guys. I said Guides, And so Live Transcribe would have cleared that up for us, but not everybody had that. There's this author speaker that lives in La Costa, and she said, could you write a chapter on how not to embarrass somebody with hearing loss? Because her husband has hearing loss. And so in my book, Sound Advice, Tune Into Listening, I did do that chapter. So if you have a child, I can understand a parent speaking up for the child, no issue there. But if I, as an adult, do not want the other person to know I have a hearing loss, or if I have diabetes, or if I have cancer, or if I have monkeypox, or anything else, then it is my right to keep that quiet, So she says that oftentimes people where she's at will ask her, what's wrong? And there was even that Macy's employee that wore the hearing aid box when I didn't get one back as a child, that they say, what's wrong with him? Can he hear? And that's what they said about this employee as well. So Macy's is planning on doing some hearing friendly training also. So you just address the person. So he would say something simple like this. I noticed that I'm asking a few questions, and I do have an aunt, or an uncle, or I heard this lady on the podcast, whatever you need. And I've noticed that you're answering the questions a lot of the ways that she said when people have hearing loss. Is there anything I can do to help with that? Is there anything I can do to help? And then if they don't know, then you can simply say, do you hear better in your right ear or your left ear? Or would it be better for us to move, say, in an automobile dealership? Would it be better for us to move where your face is not facing the window and we're over in the hearing-friendly space where it's quieter, so you can hear with your hearing aids? And I had a man named Lou, and he volunteered. He was an ex-Marine and accountant, but he went to the Marine base to volunteer for the planes. We just had the air show this last weekend. And he had a young man that told him flat out, you need to get hearing aids. So if you know a person really closely, like that nurse did me, I don't know her name, but I am so grateful that she pushed me to that point, and because it totally changed my world by wearing hearing aids.
Teresa, you touched on something that's so important earlier in misunderstanding words, where I think a lot of individuals don't understand that someone with hearing loss is simply not catching all the phrases. Can you elaborate on that? Because for me, my mom has hearing challenges for sure. And I find myself at times getting frustrated, and then I have to catch myself going, she's not doing it on purpose, but I really have to catch myself. So would you touch on missing the words and the frustration for you, the person with the hearing loss also?
Well, it works both ways. So just so you know, so it does work both ways. Yeah. So the rule of thumb is you say your sentence, whatever your sentence is, you said it slowly, 4 count, and you verify that they've heard it. So you have them repeat whatever you've said back. If it comes back totally off a topic or there's no response, they haven't heard, So your rule of thumb is you're supposed to say it twice. So you say it twice. And then if that doesn't work and you're not getting through, it's like hitting a brick wall. You have to figure out some way to get the brick wall down. So then think of other ways you can say the same sentence. And on a website I have through Your Communication, I have a whole list of those different words, because people who teach this through audiology know how to do this, And so then you say it a different way. If that doesn't work, then figure out the simplest way you can to make it into a text form. And nowadays, you can write it down, which is what Nike did. Nike chose to have pads on the counter, and they also put a thing on the counter that said, "Does this, the principal, does this apply to you? So do you need some help?" And you also can use those apps that I shared with you, which I did turn my telephone off because it goes into my hearing aids and it rings continuously. And so, but you can use the app Live Transcribe, which is closed captioning. And if your mom can still see good and if she can read, then just do that. And then there's nothing wrong with saying and asking. And this works both ways. Is now a good time for you to listen? So in a work environment, I have told more than one employer that's wanted me to listen. I say, now is not a good time for me to listen. And then I've given them whatever was going on at the time. But so you can simply say, Mom, is now a good time for you to listen? And if she says yes, then you get her in a place where your face is in the light. Like I have lights in front of me. That's why my face is so bright on this. But you get lights on her face. You make sure the environment, the telephone, the TV, it's all turned down. And then you talk about whatever questions you're going to ask her. And then when you're feeling frustrated, you put your chin up to the sky and you take your 6 deep breaths in. And that activates the sympathetic nervous system and you'll calm right down. And if you can't do it where you're in a situation where you can't put your chin up and look like you're being arrogant, then just give me your greatest smile and breathe through your teeth like all performers do. And then that way it does that. So does that help you a little bit?
Thank you. It's for a lot of individuals to understand what's it like for you to be hearing something and not getting it, and for the individual that's talking with someone that has a hearing loss. I've learned to adjust a lot better and really pay attention to what I'm being at that moment towards my mom. She's not doing it on purpose.
There is everybody heard about CODA, Children of Deaf Adults. Okay. And that covered deafness, and that was good. And I liked the movie. And bravo to Marley that she finally got that word out so more hearing people can understand this. But there is a man named Greg Houligate, who is CEO here in town for a company called, I'll just spell it, OSKA, but it's to alleviate pain. It's where you don't have to do Oxycontin. And he grew up, well, I don't have a term for us yet, but children of hard of hearing. and so Greg grew up with a father that couldn't hear well, a mother that wore hearing aids, and she was actually a sports writer. So that's what she did. And the father was an editor for a newspaper. And then his brother had hearing loss. And then he did go, and he says this publicly, but he did go through a divorce because then he married somebody with hard of hearing issues. And they didn't get divorced. But I was shocked when I did, when we met for the first time, because he is a hearing-friendly business. His company is a hearing-friendly business. And he said, okay, Teresa. So he sat me down and we talked face to face. And he was quite intense, just so you know. And I wasn't quite ready for that. I'm used to doing that to other people, but I'm not used to him doing it to me. And then when we finished conversing, he said, Teresa, one of the problems I have is that when I think he might have said my parents, so I don't know for sure, but when I'm talking to somebody who's hard of hearing, they'll leave the room, which he didn't realize we were catching up on the conversation. Well, we'll leave the room and then we'll ask a question from another room. And then if you call back and answer back, we can't hear it. So how you want to finish your conversations with your mom or anybody else is if we have anything else to discuss on this topic, then please come back and talk to me face to face, because Craig flat out asked me that day, is there anything else? And then he said, I'm going to count to 50. And when 50 is up, then we're over. And I said, okay. So I sat there and thought as hard as I could doing that 50 seconds. But that was just because of his growing up as a child of people. And my own son, I think I enunciated correctly now, but I didn't enunciate the word orange, like the fruit, and the word nuclear. And I don't know if I said it correctly then or not, because I'm still insecure about that one. But he went and he said that when he was in elementary school, so then he got teased about it. And so I don't see any reason why, if the teacher recognizes something like that, why she can't address that little June, my middle name, what my family called me. Little June has a family that is hard of hearing, and that's why she pronounced these words incorrectly. Let's help her, because people are about helping these days, So any other questions that I can help you with regarding that?
Actually, that's perfect. What is the best way for our audience to connect with you, Teresa?
Well, for those of you that are looking, it's HEAR, HEAR, communications, so COMMOUNICATION.com. And that's .com, and then also T as in Teresa, my last name Barnes, at HEAR Communication. And for those of you who text, it's okay to text me at 760-717-8190. And I'm on LinkedIn as HEAR Teresa Barnes RN. I have a new course coming out called Hearing Loss, Equality, and Inclusion. And the Carlsbad City government did do a program for their Human Resources Department, which was like climbing the Great Wall of China, but that was wonderful that they were brave enough to do this. And it's to help the 1 in 5 that have hearing loss, that are maybe not being as productive as they could be because they're hiding out, afraid to let you know that they have this. And so everybody's looking for new hires. And so that's how you can find me. And that particular course is an online course, so you can do it throughout the world. And I am available also for virtual training and for keynote speaking for the same purpose, to connect people, to educate people, and to empower people that have, in particular, the hearing loss disability. Because no matter what other disability you may have, you need to be able to listen. You need your lesson to listen at the highest level possible. And so that's on HEAR Communications trainings, and then it's Podia, P like in Peter, O like in orange, D like in dance, I as in ice cream, A as in apple or alpha.com. And so that's an online training course that, and then you can also connect with me on Facebook, so with all those acronyms that you saw, and Instagram. I would love to hear from you on Instagram, and I'll maybe even connect you with my 92-year-old teacher, so she loves hearing from people.
Teresa, thank you so much. And I know I've heard you say before that you cannot see hearing loss. So for our audience to be aware that if someone is not responding to you, it is very possible that they're not hearing you.
That's right. Yeah, I've been called rude as well. And you know how I got hit on the ski slope. So I would love to see people wear things like these little symbols, even as a hearing friendly supporter. Here in Carlsbad, we're having a lot of e-bike accidents, and our mayor of San Diego went to the Netherlands to see how their bike lanes are so they can try to help with that. But the bottom line is I can't hear car horns beat behind me. So just the way it is, and so if people could wear something like this on here, or even back here, or anywhere on their bike, to let people know that they have a hearing loss, because it's really important to be able to bring this to society, because by 2050, 90 million people across the world will have some sort of hearing loss. And we don't want to exclude those people. And everyone, I talked to a man the other day that he hired a man who was hard of hearing. And actually, he might have been deaf. So one of the two. And so this man was able to adapt in his particular restaurant, and he used the premise because this man wanted to be a busboy. And you may not think that's big, but when you don't work and you can't work because they've excluded you, then it's really great when you can work. And so the angst was, they said, well, he's deaf, he can't hear the population. They said, well, you have Hispanic busboys. They don't understand what the English speaking people or customers are saying either. So what he did was that he put us, and I would love to, he put a little thing up on the wall that when table 1 needed to be done, a little sign would come up and say 1, or table 2, or table 3. And equally so, when I go in to say In-N-Out Burger or any other place, takeout's big now, I would like to see a little number that pops up where I can visually see it. So that's what Hear Communications is about. We are making hearing loss visible. You can find these buttons, different sizes and shapes. You can find even clothing, and also the has hearing loss available on hearcommunications.com. So that's where it's at.
Teresa, thank you so much for what you're doing for the community and really bringing out this topic so people understand how extensive it is. You said 65 million in the United States alone. So thank you for everything that you do. I appreciate it. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that I may not have asked you?
Well, the one thing is, you can stay positive, which is written on you, behind you. And I think that that's the best way to approach it, because you talked about the word frustration before in reference to both your mom and yourself. And nursing wise, one of the emotional aspects of hearing loss is frustration. Mm. From frustration goes rage, or anger, and then rage. Okay. So I've often wondered if the high school shooters in particular or even employees, because we have had employee shooters, have been people with unaddressed hearing loss need issues. And I know I'm linearly focused. I do know a lot about mental health, but I also know that depression is number 1 in this particular area. So I would recommend that you, because supposedly we don't have enough employees now, but if you could create a culture of consideration for the people who even have a mild hearing loss and beyond, it's almost a guarantee you'll have loyal employees for life. Because my own aunt worked for 43 years as a deaf individual who could have gone on welfare the entire time. And she rose to the level of supervisor, as well as this employee that was shared with me as a busboy. He's now working for FedEx. And I've seen him on social media because I did verify the other day. And he has a little girl that walks up to him when he delivers things, and she's already learned sign language. So there is the ASL app. I know I'm not supposed to use that, but that's what their thing is, the ASL app. So you can learn a little bit of sign language. And then if you can help me help your community become hearing friendly, then that would be great. I would love that help and love the support. And that's all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Teresa. I thoroughly appreciate everything that you're doing. And to our audience, remember, guys, our attitude determines our altitude. Even when we're dealing with someone who is going through hearing loss, your attitude makes a difference in how they react and they feel. So thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next podcast. And thank you again for being here. Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye.